A flat, two-dimensional cross acts as the shadow of a higher order. Once we reveal the third dimension, the shape transforms into a six-directional axis, a rigorous coordinate system mapping the topology of being. To navigate this map, we must differentiate between two ways of looking at tradition. The first is syncretism, the attempt to gather disparate elements from various cultures and stitch them together from the outside. This produces a fragmented collage, a collection of borrowed parts lacking a cohesive core. Metaphysical synthesis, by contrast, operates from the inside out. It identifies a single essential unity beneath the diverse outward forms of human tradition. These forms are seen as different languages expressing the same underlying principle. Understanding the totality of existence requires us to look past the historical details of these myths and adopt the objective logic of synthetic geometry. During the 19th century, naturalist scholars argued that ancient symbols were just primitive attempts to record astronomical phenomena, like the solar cycle or the movement of the stars. The traditional doctrine reverses this relationship through the law of correspondence. Physical phenomena, like planetary orbits and equinoxes, are the lower-order reflections of higher transcendent metaphysical principles. This map centers on the universal man, known as El Insanul Kamil in Sufism, or Adam Kadmon in the Kabbalah. This figure represents the actualization of every possible state of being, where the entire macrocosm is perfectly realized within the human microcosm. René Guénon's three-dimensional cross serves as the necessary geometric blueprint for visualizing this totalization of existence. We begin with a single horizontal plane called ampleur, or amplitude. This represents the indefinite extension of one specific state of existence. Human individuality, comprising all our physical and subtle modalities, occupies just one of these flat layers. While modern philosophy often views the individual as a closed, self-sufficient unit, the geometric model shows us a relative fragment. The human state is only one layer in an infinite stack of horizontal possibilities. This stack is pierced by a vertical axis called exaltation. By piercing every plane at its center, this axis represents the hierarchical superposition of all states, connecting the manifest worlds to the unmanifest principles of pure being. An entity's reality is logically incomplete until its specific horizontal state is anchored by this vertical continuum of all existence. This 3D model allows us to map the three Hindu gunas, the fundamental tendencies that govern all manifestation. The upper vertical axis corresponds to sattva. This is the luminous upward tendency, drawing a being toward conformity with its pure essence. The lower vertical axis represents tamas. This is the dark, downward tendency toward ignorance and the heavy, lower states of existence. The intersecting horizontal plane represents rajas. This is the drive for expansion, the force that provokes a being to develop its possibilities within a specific level of existence. Every manifested entity is geometrically defined by the precise proportional tension between these three directional forces. Beyond these tendencies, the cross maps the interaction of the active and passive principles, often termed Purusha and Prakriti. The vertical axis is the active principle, the activity of heaven. It is the unmoving force determining production in the realms below. The horizontal plane acts as universal passivity, the waters. It holds all potential in a dormant state until its intersection by the vertical axis. The universal man is realized at the exact geometric point where these forces achieve total equilibrium. At the exact center where all axes meet, we find the origin. From this point, the six directions radiate outward to form the infinite cosmic wheel. While the wheel's rotation creates the complexity of space and time, the center remains static. Taoism identifies this center as the invariable middle, and Sufism as the divine station. From here, the sage directs manifestation through non-acting activity, the power of a principle that acts without being moved. On the spinning periphery, every movement is chaotic and amplified. However, as an entity moves towards the origin, its movement reduces until it hits zero. Reaching this unmoving geometric center is the literal requirement for spiritual mastery. The periphery is the domain of action and multiplicity, a state of constant friction and war. The center, by contrast, is absolute stillness. At the center, the three axes meet and neutralize. Every opposition, active and passive, up and down, balances and ceases to exist at this primordial origin. This state is the metaphysical peace in the void, or as-sakina. It is the absolute detachment from the spinning wheel of contingent forms. The universal man is the literal, topological totalization of every possible dimension of existence. It is the point where the individual finally integrates with the absolute totality. René Guénon's three-dimensional cross stands as the structural reality of the absolute itself. It is the geometric blueprint of a truth that persists within the core of every human tradition.